Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and The Fool. I want to talk about pedophilia.
Before that, I want to accuse you of something. Not related to that statement.
Can we change the time? Wow. Okay, go on.
So you were...
Did you do that on purpose?
No, you just got to the gun before I could. No, we'll talk about my feeling.
No, go on.
So you were saying that the problem you had with anime is you weren't watching the good anime.
Yes.
And you're talking about how you really enjoyed Your Name.
Yeah.
The second best anime movie ever made by sales in the world and rating of animated movies. It's the second. Well, the only one that's outdone it is Spirited Away.
Really?
Yes.
I think it's better than Spirited Away.
Yeah, I just say like, oh, I need to watch I'm watching the good anime, and then it's like, oh, this one is all right. It's like,
no, Your Name is fantastic.
yes.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I watched it recently.
No, I think it might be my favorite movie ever. It might be in my top 10 pieces of media ever. Like, it is good.
It took 8 years to complete. The animation and writing of it.
Now the thing is, I thought something similar about the Raiguria Chronicles.
Yeah.
But rereading it really doesn't hold up on a second run. And so I haven't seen Your Name multiple times. So the thing is, I can read Harry Potter infinite times and I'm happy.
Yeah.
Most movies I can't stand to watch a second time.
Yeah.
And like Hero is one of the few movies I can stand to watch over and over again.
Yeah.
And I don't even think I could watch Your Name again because it is so built upon suspense and surprise.
Yeah.
So in terms of messaging, Your Name is way up there, but in terms of actually me enjoying it enough to watch it again, it's quite a bit lower.
So it took 8 years to make. It's based off a light model.
Light novel, yeah.
Yeah, it was the best Japanese selling piece of media in China at the time. It took forever for foreign media. It took forever to be beaten by Hollywood. It was the most popular movie for ages in Japan.
So I went to this interesting website where it's like a fan anime ranking thing.
Yeah.
But it's like a massive database, so it's basically the top anime in the world, and you can sort through it by like a billion different tags.
Yeah.
And I figured out the best thing. What you do is you order it by top rated.
Yeah.
And it has Your Name in like the top 10.
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop's number 1, I think. And then it's got just a bunch of garbage like Attack on Titan and the top one is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Which I saw the first episode. It's garbage. Attack on Titan, kind of garbage. Death Note, like decent, but like I'd give it like a 51% out of 100, like passing grade maybe. So actually, the first half of Death Note, the anime, that's like a 75, and then the rest is a fail.
Yeah.
But if you do a little tag, you say remove all things based on a manga, suddenly you have a much higher quality list. The list becomes a bunch of Chinese anime. I'm not even sure if that's the right name. And Studio Ghibli.
Yeah.
If you just get rid of based on a manga, it suddenly becomes a much higher quality list.
The life cycle of anime is light novel, manga, anime, live adaptation. And apparently each iteration they get worse.
Well, I think the problem with basing it on a manga is they try to be faithful, and manga... But they don't. They're faithful in the wrong way.
Yeah.
They're like, if you want to see something that's fantastically faithful, Batman Year One takes a comic book and does an exact replication, but it doesn't, like, each frame doesn't last like 10 minutes like they do in like Attack on Titan.
I think something you might have noticed about Your Name is also its animation frame rate was actually above 12.
But I don't actually like. I was watching what was it? It might have been Birdie the Mighty.
Yeah.
Which I think it something. It has a very low frame rate, but it's like,
well, there's style in frame rate. Like there's there's ways to take 12 frame rates and make them work.
But the pacing was fine.
Yeah.
And I actually watched something called Gokudon. Like I just watched the first like Well, I guess it's like a movie, right, or something. I don't know how it works.
I don't recognize the name.
It's about a sort of anti-hero rogue who. It's like a kid's show. It's not very good, but it's like Pokemon basically.
Yeah.
And so I was watching a bit of it, and they do stuff like there'll be a big fight, and then suddenly this little fairy will come along and pull down a banner in front of the screen, and the banner will say, we didn't have the budget to animate this scene, so here's a summary, and it'll show like 12 little men on the screen, and it'll show the person fighting them, and then it'll just draw an extra the men like dunk, 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 dunk. And it's fine. It doesn't, because it's not slowing down the pace. Whereas in Attack on Titan, they don't admit they don't have the budget, they just
put
spend
all the budget into the spinny bitty captain guy.
They spend 20 minutes just like having someone fly slowly through the air towards the Titan's neck, and then like when Attack on Titan is in motion, it's gorgeous and it's amazing, and the story is really compelling and interesting, and the world is compelling. And I think what the problem, or not the problem, but what happened with anime, I think, is like the ones based on manga especially, people that like those, I think what they like is the imaginativeness of the world.
Yeah.
It's not, because the plots are kind of terrible, like the pacing's so bad, but the worlds are very compelling. Like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, people love it for some reason, and it is very interesting. Like, this is based on real alchemy, and it's got all this
there's some
really cool imagery and ideas.
There are really cool characters and ideas in it as well, the further you get in.
But the pacing is just so slow and uninteresting. Well,
you know those millennials, they just can't stand to watch slow media. Everything has to be down.
I don't mind. Like, Your Name is not a fast show. It's like 2 hours or something, and it's...
Hour 40 minutes.
Although its pacing is quite quick, really. Like, they do that amazing bit in the middle where they just do like a montage, which, I mean, don't think most people have a budget to do a montage, because you're like condensing so much into...
Well, something I was considering about Your Name is like the opening where they were showing like random trains going. They use the train scene several times, but like showing random trains, showing a city, showing people walking through a station. It's like, they didn't have to do these, but they're setting a scene. It's like so much drawing.
Yeah, it's closer to Ghibli than most things, I think. Yeah, I think Spirited Away probably only sells better because I don't know, it was more popular for some reason. I don't know why it broke out into the...
Spirited Away also re-released and got a whole bunch more box office money.
I don't know, like, why didn't Your Name come here? It seems...
Well, it went throughout the West. I just don't think it came all the way to here.
Okay.
Because it was immensely... It was like the top movie in the West in a lot of places for a short while, too.
Because it's... No, the interesting thing is, I'm talking about plot and pacing and whatnot.
Yeah.
Your Name isn't the most original plot idea ever. Like, it's neat, but it's not... like, the whole... I'm not going to spoil it, because it... like really, really hinges on not being spoiled.
Yeah.
But the whole second or third act, I guess you could say, of it.
Yeah.
Where suddenly the hero has to be a hero rather than to just experience this strange world they're in.
Yeah.
It's like not that interesting in a way. Like but the thing is, it's kind of like War and Peace or the Brothers Karamazov. Brothers Karamazov is a murder mystery. War and Peace is a military fiction, sort of.
Yeah.
It's more just about a nobleman with gambling debts, really. That's not a very interesting, I don't know what you call that even, device, plot hook.
Yeah.
And Your Name, it has a slightly better one, but it's still not that interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the details where it matters. It's the way they tell the story. I think, it's really hard to talk about without spoiling it, so we might have to do a separate episode on this or something at some point. But Your Name might save Japan. Because Japan has some very serious cultural problems right now. They have like a whole class of people, like men slightly older than me, basically, whose lives are meaningless. Like nihilism is a huge issue in Japan.
Yeah.
And Your Name, I think, actually gives a counter to that. It shows you that things matter, that dreams matter, that you should pay attention to the world around you.
Yeah.
And so this actually ties into the pedophilia thing. Like, it's actually related, because Your Name is what inspired me to talk about this. So in Your Name, the central thing is that he keeps switching places back and forth with this girl.
Yeah.
And then they like live each other's lives, and they very rationally, actually, or cleverly, I guess, start communicating with each other. And like, I think the thing is most, like, that's again with the quality and the production and the depth.
Yeah.
A lot of shows could do this, but you'd be like, oh, why didn't the characters do this? Why didn't the characters do this? Why didn't the characters do this? And for every instance, they have an answer in Your Name.
Yeah.
And the characters, and that's for the stuff the characters don't do. For the stuff they could have, but they do like 90% of what any normal person would have done.
Yeah.
And they even do some stuff that's slightly more clever, like journaling and whatnot. Now, the one thing would be, I guess, giving your GPS coordinates, which they don't do. But, I mean, given where the girl lives, that might not actually be possible because, like, where we live, you can only get within, like, a kilometer or two anyways a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So, unless you have an actual GPS device.
There's an anime that makes fun of that concept, but that's another topic.
So the character, he's living this life, and the girl as well. They're both living their dream life. And there's a line which is really important where the girl says, I wish I was a cute Tokyo boy.
Yeah.
Because it's her perfect life. She really wants to live in the city. She wants to have money. She wants to have friends. She wants to be able to go to cultural places like cafes and movie theaters and parks. And the boy wants to have a close-knit family and to have something more meaningful because her family is quite religious. And so he loves that he gets this sort of spiritual connection to the land. And he's an artist and he gets to see these beautiful landscapes because she lives in the middle of nowhere, basically.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing there, but he likes it because there's nothing there. Like, there's just nature, which she doesn't see the benefits of nature because she wants to be going to the movies and going to the cafes and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so the part that really nailed it home was when she said, I wish I was a cute Tokyo boy. So I had a dream a few months ago where I won't go into it unless it's necessary, just because it was really long.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is normal or not. I assume it is, but I can be quite affected by dreams like, I don't know if they're real or not sometimes. Like, they're very heavy duty. And also some dreams are so beautiful and lovely that you like, they're better than life in a way. Like, it's sort of like this ideal or this taste of heaven sort of thing where it's like you wake up with this warm, fuzzy feeling.
Yeah.
So it's very powerful. And so this dream sort of like went throughout a few days where I was just sort of like in this daydream of it, like continuing almost. It was very powerful. And in a creepy way. I knew it was happening at the time. Like, it was creepy because what this dream was about was there was these three zombie women who they were zombies in my dream, but they're closer to vampires. Yeah. So it's kind of like the reverse of what an actual vampire was. Anyways. So there was these zombie women who had disguised themselves with their powerful magic to look like beautiful Victorian women. But the plantation owners in South Africa knew that they were zombies, so they had them captured in cages. And so I was a wizard, and I was going to investigate them to try to like figure out what they're up to. And I knew that one of them had a lover, because anything I touched, I could know everything about them and incorporate everything about them. So, for instance, how I found the zombies was I just said, I found them in the Yukon, and I said, show me where you came from. And suddenly I was sitting in a car as they were driving back towards South Africa. So I just said, like, show me who you love to one of the zombie women. And then I became like this 14-year-old little girl. Like, she's like, 20 something, right?
Okay.
And so the moment I do that in the dream, I'm like a secret agent sort of thing, right? So I'm like, okay, so I have a lead on her now. I can bribe her with this. Like, she's a pedophile, basically, because her lover is this 14-year-old little girl. And so I decided I would torment her sort of in the dream. So I went to her and she's like, oh, finally you've come. I've been like so lonely in this cage. And so she like grabbed me and hugged me and held on to me. And I started teasing her like, oh, the principal at my school was coming after me sort of thing, and to make her jealous. And she's like, what? No, that's wrong. You can't do that. You're only 14. He's an adult. Like, that's sick. That's disgusting. And I was like, what's the difference between that and you and me? And she's like, we're different. And she like grabbed me and she's like, we're different. And the thing was, in the dream as well, I would sort of like incorporate the personality of the things I transformed into, right? So I'm this 14-year-old little girl getting hugged by this 25-year-old woman or whatever she is. And I don't know if I've ever felt more loved, comfortable, safe, and secure in my life. That's creepy. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, this was this feeling of like, I'm home. Like, I'm held, I'm loved. And so I started losing myself in the dream to the point of like not resisting and just like, oh, I'm so happy I'm with you and you're safe and sort of thing. And so waking up, right? you have a dream, it teaches you something. Dreams always teach you something. And so in the girl's life, she sees Tokyo and she thinks freedom, expressiveness, opportunity. The boy sees nature, art, spiritualness, bonding with the world.
Yeah.
I saw love, affection, dedication, kindness, right?
Yeah.
But what I think, this is just a theory of psychology. And I could be way off because I've never heard this expressed anywhere. Maybe Jung would go into it because he was big in dreams. But I think if you fixate on the wrong part of the dream, it could lead to a very severe mental issue.
Yeah.
Where, let's say the girl wanted to replicate her feeling of, like her feeling of comfort and happiness. Like, I'm in Tokyo and whatnot. I want to be she said, I want to be a cute Tokyo boy. She didn't say, I want to live in Tokyo. That's what she really wanted.
Yeah.
And so you could have her trying to be a boy to regain that feeling. And you could have the boy trying to be a girl to regain that feeling, unaware that the whole thing they should do in both cases is move.
Yeah.
And in my dream, the takeaway could be, well, it's kind of impossible. Like, I can't be the mistress, the child mistress of a older woman. That doesn't make sense. And so the other takeaway would be, well, then I should be the woman to give someone else that feeling of love, pursue it, sort of thing. And so then you could be pursuing, instead of pursuing love, you're pursuing the actions of the characters in your dream. And the actions of the characters in your dream are not right. So could seeking validation lead to pedophilia is basically the... or not just pedophilia, like this is everything. Transgenderism, whatever it might be. Like you have a dream, the feeling, let's say you have...
might upset some people by comparing the two.
It could be anything, right? Like anything that causes you distress, because these all cause people distress.
Yeah.
Whether they're good or bad. But you have a dream where everything goes right.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, I want that feeling. Because dreams teach you, like you're supposed to pursue your dreams, right?
Yeah.
So you wake up and you're like, I need to chase this dream. But if you chase it in the wrong way, you fixate on the wrong thing, like, oh, I was a Tokyo boy. Oh, I was in a, I don't even know what you call it, age split relationship, pedophilic relationship. Oh, that's the wrong thing to fixate on, obviously. And I think like if you had a dream about, I don't know, it's a very weird idea because it's like, oh, I had a dream where I was bleeding and I felt so happy, and then it's like, well, I should cut myself. Like I don't know if that's where things come from, but it's.
See,
so okay, go on.
It's weird because everyone experiences dreams different ways. That's a lot of people do, because our moms talk about dreams are very different. You talk about your dreams very different. Because for me, in that case, so start wherever, like going to wherever, Africa, and interacting with that person. The dream would probably switch places about 3 or 4 times before it got to the end, and the characters won't stay the same, and a lot would get mixed up. Yeah. And you have to change a dream into terms that you can communicate with someone else. Communicate. Yeah, so there's that. And then I would probably forget it as well, because I forget most dreams. But like looking at the literal thing that happened in a dream, I do think is really not the exact approach of if you're going to get something out of your dreams besides a dream, trying to replicate it isn't going to do you any good.
I agree entirely. And so I think Your Name does this fantastically because the problem with the I guess they call them NEETs in Japan, right?
Yeah.
The problem is that they're trapped in a no-win scenario, so the only option is escapism.
Yeah.
And so they chase dreams, basically.
Yeah, they're half asleep.
Yeah.
While living.
And Your Name actually shows a way that people can use their dreams to live instead of to hide. Mm-hmm. They actually show the dreams, because the dreams in Your Name teach, but they do not rob from the person's life. They add to their life. And so I think that there is, when you have a dream, as Your Name shows, and not just a dream, it's kind of like anything in life. So if you see a tree, let's say, you're walking along, you see a tree, and something about it calls to you, and you say, well, rationally, that's silly, that's stupid. Why is this tree calling to me? So you just walk on by because it's silly to care about the tree. Or you see someone that you've never seen before, and you say, like, who is that person? And I want to talk to them. Like, I want to know about them, right? And you just, no, that's silly. You walk on by. There is, so after watching Your Name, I was, I don't know, I was feeling quite emotional. I went for a walk. And I had a glimpse of the face of God moment, or the glimpse of heaven moment, right? And so what happened was, I was thinking, okay, so a dream is heaven, right? You have this picture, you have this, everything works, everything clicks. I had a dream once where like everything went right. It was just like, oh, all my friends never moved away. There was never this issue. There's never this issue. Just everything. So dreams are this golden, rose-tinged glimpse of heaven in a way. Even bad dreams, I find, tend to, there's something there's something heroic about dreams. Yeah. They're not necessarily like perfect, but they're heroic. There's meaning in dreams. Like, you're like, this is more meaningful than my life. This is heroism, noble. It's like Lord of the Rings. You read Lord of the Rings because you see nobility. Yeah. And so I had this glimpse of this nobility, right? And so I was going for this walk and I was thinking, what if that nobility exists, right? It doesn't matter if it probably doesn't or not, right? But what if it exists? I cannot dismiss the possibility that exists. I cannot dismiss the possibility that that tree leads to that nobility, that that person should be talked to, they lead to that nobility. If I dismiss that possibility, I have cut myself off from this whole avenue of life for no reason, because I gain nothing by cutting myself off except fear. So in First Heroes, I added this stat called embarrassment, which goes up as you embrace other cultures. Yeah. Or not other cultures, but cultures you should be embracing but haven't. And so embarrassment goes up, and embarrassment slowly goes down over time, and that's all embarrassment does. It goes up and it goes down. It doesn't actually affect gameplay at all. And the point is to show people that embarrassment is temporary and it doesn't actually matter. The point is to experience and to learn and to live. And so if you think something matters, don't just abandon it. Pursue that, right? That's sort of, I think that's what Your Name says. Yeah. And it says pursue what could have meaning, right? But it doesn't say pursue the dream. Like, don't look at the finger, look at the moon. Yeah. The finger is being a Tokyo boy, or being in a relationship with a pedophilic vampire,
or fighting monsters.
Yeah. Whatever you're
yeah, instead of just being brave, it's like, no, I have to go fight monsters. I've got to go find myself like some beast in the wood to fight.
And it's an idea I don't even know if I'm conveying right, because it's so weird, because it's like, you just have to watch Your Name, I think. But it's like you shouldn't live in the dream world. You should be inspired by the dream world to realize that you need to pay attention. Yeah. It's like, wait, why is that tree important? Go to it. Like, and then there's the opposite side, of course, of obsession and OCD, which you don't want. So it's hard to, I think, well, when fear is the limiting factor, I think that's the clue that it's okay to pursue. So like, oh, I really want to ask this person out, let's say. Yeah. There's nothing like, if you're asking everyone out you see in the street, then or if you're asking the same person out multiple times, like over and over and over again, then you're just being a compulsive creep. Yeah. But if there's a person where there might be something here, but there's probably not. You have that moment of like, you had that glimpse of, why would you turn your back on eternity when the price for doing so is so small? And if it's not there in that moment, that's fine. It could be somewhere else. Yeah. Well, but you cut yourself, like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, I guess.
Yeah. So the end of Your Name really reminded me of something that happened to me and you ages ago.
Okay, be very careful not to spoil it, because the ending is very sensitive. Yeah. Like, even talking about it vaguely could lead to spoilers.
Yeah, I actually don't think I can then.
Yeah.
So I'll just tell you about it later.
Okay.
But like you're saying, to help you, like, gave me life, it made me really sad. Like, the ending made me incredibly sad.
Yeah. Well, no. Your Name. Yeah. So the second thing about so I guess to just move away from that, so we don't. So the second thing about pedophilia is, I've been watching this show, another anime. I don't know if you've heard of it, called Happy Sugar Life, which is about a pedophile and her relationship with a 8-year-old girl. And have you heard of it?
Nope.
Okay. So the show is about emotional and physical abuse, and also about this pedophile and her 8-year-old little girl that she keeps locked in her house. And
WTF Japan.
the creepy thing about this show, or maybe the interesting thing about human experience, is that the relationship between the two girls is basically identical to the one in my dream that I had months and months ago. And so there's this connection between me and the author to some degree, I guess, there, or the writer, which is really interesting. And I think it's just because it's a human experience. The love, because the thing about a pedophilic relationship from the child's perspective is you get to be in a relationship with God. There is a perfect human being who knows everything and is all powerful and all caring and all kind.
Yeah.
And they take care of you. And I think the thing this show really shows, which is super powerful, which I'm kind of glad it's Japan doing it, because I think the girl is only 15 or 16.
Yeah.
But she's still clearly a pedophile. What makes it really interesting is that the whole Smash Bros thing with all these pedophilic accusations left and right and whatnot.
Yeah.
Or Zero flirting with that 15-year-old girl when he was 19. The whole point they're missing is why pedophilia is so wrong.
Yeah.
And I think this show represents it super well on different levels. So the girl and the two girls, the older girl absolutely loves the younger girl.
Yeah.
She'd do anything for her. Literally anything. She murders a couple people throughout the show. And she...
I will reiterate, WTF Japan.
She really cares about her. To the point of she protects her from everything. She isn't... she's not in a sexual relationship with this girl at all.
Yeah.
She comes home and she hugs her, and then they'll play games together, and they'll do a fake wedding where the little girl kisses her on the forehead, and then she'll tuck her into sleep, or they'll maybe have a sleepover and they'll cuddle together in their sleep. Very wholesome seeming stuff in a way. But the whole point is that the older girl, it's a one-sided relationship.
Yeah.
Because the older girl is doing it entirely to she's devouring the little girl, basically. Yeah. She is not allowing her to see anyone else. She's not allowing her. She is the full emotional range of this girl, and this is all the girl knows, and she loves her for that. And
the little girl can't do anything about it either.
So it's an emotional devourment, and the little girl has no idea what's going on. She doesn't want the authorities to find the little girl, so she says, "Don't go outside; it's dangerous." So she's actually destroying this girl's world to keep her selfishly for herself, because she loves her so much.
Mm-hmm.
And she feels this horrible feeling at one point, the older girl, where the little girl's brother, I think, is looking for her, and she wants to kill the brother, and she's like, "Oh, why do I feel so sick, so bitter, and then she's like, "Oh, wait, I'm feeling jealousy, I'm feeling emotion finally. I haven't felt emotion in years. I must be feeling jealousy because I love her so much." And she starts skipping happily along because she loves her. Now she has to work. She's 15, right? And she's trying to keep a house for just herself and this little girl. Because she's an orphan and she murdered her aunt so they could be together. And so she has to provide all the food and rent and everything for both of them. So she's working late all the time. So the little girl just spends all day sitting on the couch waiting for her to come home. So she's very lonely as well. Yeah. So she actually runs out of the house at one point looking for her, because she's like, "I want to go outside. I want to find her. I love her so much, and I'm scared and lonely, and maybe something bad happened to her." So she runs outside. So there's a side story in the first or second episode. Yeah. Where there's this guy falls in love with the main character, the older girl. Yeah. And she turns him down, but the manager, the adult who's 26 or 28 or something, doesn't like it that the main character is getting more attention than her. So she rapes the 15-year-old boy and beats him and locks him in her cupboard. And so the main character learns about this and rescues him. Yeah. And then she uses the fact that she knows about this whole thing as blackmail against the manager to get her pay on time, because the manager was restricting her pay. And so this guy, you're like, wow, that sucks for him. Mm-hmm. But then he ends up quitting the job because, and he actually ends up going to her other job because she works multiple jobs. Yeah. And he starts working there, and he's talking to her, and he says, I'm like, "Thank you so much for helping me, and I I'm having a lot of trouble finding work because I can't deal with older women anymore. Like I have to find a job where there's no older women because I'm terrified of older women now.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, poor guy. Like you can't blame him, right? But he won't even talk to a woman that's older than him, basically. And then you see him in the workroom and he finds one of the missing posters for the little girl. And he's like, forgive me, parents, because now I can't stand older women, but it's like she's so pure and I just love her. And he starts like kissing the poster of her and stuff. And he's even enamored of little girls now because they are safe, they are pure, they won't hurt him. He's in power and they are pure, they're kind. Yeah. And so there's this scene where he actually finds a little girl when she's running around lost, and he's like, "Oh, let me help you," because I think he's a man at war with himself. Yeah, he would be a decent person if he wasn't a pedophile, let's say, but he is a pedophile. But he's like, "Oh, let me help you," but he doesn't do any of the sensible things. That's the thing, right? Yeah. He wants to help her because I'm a good person, I will help this. But he doesn't phone the police or call the number on the wanted poster. He's like, oh, I'm going to help this little girl and protect her. So he's actually not a good person. He is being good for his own gratification. Right? Yeah. Like, I will rescue this little girl. And so he grabs her and he's like, oh, are you lost? And he's like, and he says her name because he saw the posters everywhere. He's like, I want you to do something for me. And she's like, what do you want? Are you okay? And he starts crying. He goes down to the ground and bows to her. And he's like, I want you to kiss my boo-boo and make it better. And then you're like, ooh, where's that going? And then the next scene shows him on a bench just crying his eyes out, just kind of like curled up in a ball. Yeah. And she's sitting beside him and she just keeps tapping on the head like, don't worry, you're okay. Don't worry, you're okay. Like, make it better, make it better. So so there's nothing even sexual there, right? Yeah. But it's disgusting. Yeah. And so there's this concept called emotional incest, which is in familial relationships, where a parent uses their child as
emotional anchor, or
they tell them about their problems. Yeah, parents aren't supposed to do that, surprisingly. So that tells some. I know what this emotional incest stuff is. I'm not sure if you do as much. I think you probably do, but I'm the older one, and it's very common in divorced families.
I don't tolerate it.
Yeah. Well, it was more when I was younger, like because I was 8 when it started, right? And it just like you become the parent. It's also called parentification, which sounds less creepy than emotional incest, maybe. Yeah. But it's basically parents rely on their child. Yeah. Now, it's very important. There is ways parents can be sad around their child. It doesn't mean you should lie to your child or anything. Mm-hmm. But what you don't do is you say like, "Oh, we're broke. We're so poor. I don't know what to do." And then the child's like, "Well, I can help you work." You don't do that as a parent. What you do is you say, "Okay, we're gonna have to cut down on spending. Mm-hmm. I don't have any money. I lost my job. I'm going to find another one." Or you be honest to your child, or you say, "Okay, we're going to be living in a tent for a while." Even like you even say like, "We can't find it."
Sigh 9.5. Yes. Wow, Dad, it's so cool. Take your dog. I really like it. I'm glad you like it, son. Glad you like it. And then he has a evicted notice, and he throws it away, and they're both sitting on the it's a couch in the dump, and then the sun like goes out, and Dad's like crying. And then it shows later on the dad's saying they're reading a newspaper that was brought to him by a rat, and they're both like covered garbage with kids like playing two King Cans garbage.
Yeah, so the dad shouldn't be lying about that, because then he is actually being emotionally incestuous. He is asking the child to find the situation okay. Yeah. If the child is okay, well, that's another thing. But what the parent should do is just be honest. Like, okay, we have to cut back on 7. We're going to lose our house, whatever it might be. It's my job to deal with it. I am the adult here. Yeah. Or so financially, or like, okay, your mother and I are getting a divorce. I am really sad right now. I'm sorry I can't play with you. I'm going to go to my best friend's house, and I'll take you over to your aunt's, and then I'm going to go to my best friend's house and just talk to him because I'm feeling rough. Yeah. It's like, you don't have to worry about it. I'm dealing with it, but just bear with me. I'm a bit sad right now. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing you can do. The thing you don't do is like go to them and say, I need a hug. Because then the child becomes responsible for making you feel better. The child is actually not given a choice. Mm-hmm. See, with your friend, you say, I need a hug. The friend can say yes or no. Yeah. Whereas
your friend can say, stop being such a miserable louse and get out there and do something.
Whereas the child does not have a choice. Yeah. The child wants, because children absolutely love their parents. Yeah. Like the degree to which children love their parents is ridiculous. And anything the parents, the really awful thing about emotional incest is you read an article about it, or you read a psychologist thing on it, and you look at the comments on it. And the people that are so blind to what they're doing to their own children it's just heartbreaking.
I know someone who's really, really affected by it. And
I'd say me less so, because here's the thing.
No, I'm saying like affect, like it's knock-on impacts in their life. They don't want to have kids because of it.
Yeah, it can get really bad.
Like they don't want to have kids because I don't know if they're worried they do it to their own kids, but they don't see parenthood as a good thing.
Well, the other thing is you can have a lot of trouble with your partner because what you do. I actually did this in my first relationship. I just realized yesterday, which is like, wow, geez, I'm kind of like, I don't know if you're listening, but thank you for breaking up with me, because like, and also sorry in a way. It's like, wow, because what you do, right, is when you're used to being the one that your parent goes to for support. The thing is, a child is a child. They don't have developed brains. They can't deal with things. Like it's not that they're unkind, or their brains aren't capable of actually dealing with stuff. And so a child needs to be able to lean back and be caught, right? Yeah. A child needs to be able to trust fall, basically, emotionally. If the child has nothing to lean against, then they have to become the thing that everything leans into, right?
Yeah.
Which doesn't actually work for a child, because their brains literally aren't capable. And so what can happen, and often does and happened to me, is when you get into a relationship with someone, you actually end up in a situation where you will never state any issues you have with the relationship. You will, not just the relationship, anything. So your partner's sad, you're responsible for your partner's sadness. Like, oh, their cat died. Well, I will drive like out at 2 a.m. to go talk to them and make them feel better. I will do this. I will do that. You become responsible for your partner's emotion. The partner's not going to like that. It's going to feel cloying, over, like, get your own life. Jeez, you loser. Like, what? Just like, yeah, I'm sad, but it's not your responsibility. And even if they do feel it, then they're going to, I mean, they're pretty damaged if they're liking it and leaning into it.
And they're letting.
And the other thing is,
they're letting you do that to yourself.
Yeah,
like,
and
that's
also
not good. Like, if they let you do that to yourself, that's not a great thing.
And also, there's the whole problem of you are probably resenting your partner, like both of them probably, but like, let's say me resenting my partner potentially. Yeah. I didn't feel it at the time. I still don't think I felt it, but you probably are at some degree, because what you're doing is, how come I can't be sad today? How come I, like, it never came up? Well, but what if it had come up? What if I had been sad and she was sad? What do we do then?
Jordan Peterson talked about slaves and tyrants in relationships, and both are miserable. A tyrant is not happy.
And I don't know what role I would be in that. Like, would I be the tyrant because I am responsible for everything of that person? I guess that makes you a tyrant, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
Or you're responsible for all their emotions, so you're a slave because you're a servant.
Well, so like the slave does everything for them.
Yeah, so I guess I'd be a slave.
And the tyrant doesn't do anything, and the person's worthless, and they're miserable because.
But the crazy thing is, I would not call her a tyrant, so that would make me a slave with no master, basically, like enslaving myself.
Yeah.
Which is pretty messed up. But the thing is, as well to keep in mind, is that you can say, oh, I had a terrible childhood and whatnot, and blah, 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 this happened to me. And like, so I'm super damaged and what. That's another excuse. That's another way to blame someone.
Yeah.
Because I was falling into that. I was like, reading, I was like, geez, this is like reading about the outcomes on life. And it's like, you know, in certain cultures, sometimes it actually makes the child stronger, sometimes, but it's like really damaging most of the time. And I was like, oh man, I wish I had a childhood. And then it's like, wait, why don't I just be a good person now? Like, I'm still like, holy cow. Like, this was like, what, like a month or two ago now? Like, it was back in August, wasn't it? Yeah. Where I was saying like the whole Zuko thing. It's like still that well-worn path of I want to blame someone else for my problems so that I don't have to deal with them. But it's amazing how taking there's like a tier list, right?
Yeah.
The worst possible thing is, okay, so the best possible thing, let's say, is taking responsibility. But it feels really bad right up front. But then it feels so much better than everything else. Yeah. And then the next best thing is blaming someone else, which makes you feel really bad. And then the worst possible thing is blaming
the world and God.
Well, no, blaming yourself. Like, I'm talking about feeling for yourself, not health emotionally. I'm just talking about how does that work? So if there's something,
well, I mean,
so if the dishes aren't clean, right?
Yeah.
And it's your fault for whatever reason. First, you can blame, like, why didn't my partner instruct me to clean those dishes? But that's like poison.
Yeah.
Right. And so the much better thing is, oh, I didn't clean those dishes. The moment you take responsibility, it feels so much better. Like, it's a leap, but it feels so much better.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, below the my partner didn't clean them is blaming God. Like, why does God make it so there's dirty dishes in the world? Like,
yeah.
that's a level of self-destruction of the universe is not bending to your whim.
Yeah.
How dare the universe not suit me?
But I had another one, which was like, you are... Oh, I can't remember. It's like, there's a different way to... There's like an inverted one of the best one, which is like... I'm responsible, I'm a monster. That's it, yeah. So the worst possible thing you can do is say, it's my fault, and then do nothing about it. And then it's slightly better to blame someone else, I think, emotionally. Like, both are horribly destructive, but one feels slightly better. But then the thing that, it's the scariest thing, is like blaming yourself and doing something about it. I'm not even sure what that order. I don't know. I had it better worked out before. But if you take responsibility, end of the day is, you will drop so many burdens. You're like, whoa. And I don't know why, like, but it's not even like a, mental, like, psych. It's a physical response. Like, you literally, the moment you take responsibility, your health increases. Like, literally, like, your heart feels better, your stomach feels better, the acid goes down in your throat. Like, it's magical. I don't know why. Yeah.
Well, I mean, with that thing.
But the moment you take blame for stuff, it's. Like,
I remember talking about this, but before when I had problem, still do, but I handle much better with kleptomania. Keep your stuff away from my sticky fingers. I'm not a good pickpocket, I'm just a kleptomaniac, so you'll just be walking in my hand, will be in your pocket. But when I had like stolen a bunch of money from our dad, like I was like, I have to tell him, then I was too scared. And it's like I wasn't able to sleep, and I was like feeling ill from it, and like I wasn't able to progress in my life. Like, it felt like I was actually stuck in my life from how bad it was. And then, when I finally told him and paid him back for it, it felt like the biggest weight had been lifted off my shoulders. It's like, I don't have to carry this anymore. And also, his response was really good. It's like, oh, why didn't you just ask for money? Was basically his response.
Yeah.
And I was like, stupid kid, basically, that it became a habit.
Yeah, well, it's good he had a good response.
Yeah, but for me, like, his response, like, if he's mad, it's like, okay, he's going to be, but I have to do this.
Well, I think the thing is, right, his response was actually really good. But the important thing, because I think it's possible to get addicted to telling people about your flaws.
Yes.
And that isn't good either. So I'm trying to think of a way to like frame it within this. So our dad's response was really good, but if our dad had had a bad response, it might have been better for you not to tell him, but make it right anyway. Like, I'm trying to think that's not quite right, but I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this.
I thought of, like, cause like later on when I make money, I'll pay him back then, and just like never say anything about him.
No, I think it was good that you told him, and I think he had a really good response.
Yeah, that thought process went through my mind. I was like, I'll just put money into his wallet, or I'll just send him money without saying anything or whatever. Like, it's like, I'll just do that.
But I've been in a mindset before, which is what I'm trying to get into, I guess, here, is where whenever someone does something to annoy me, I have to like chew them out for it, which isn't actually me. That's not me taking responsibility, I guess, at the end of the day. That's just like me taking responsibility would be me actually just saying, don't do this or I'll do X. That's you taking responsibility. Whereas if I just go like, oh, you're so annoying, you're so like that isn't doing anything. I don't know what it's tricky. Like, boundaries are hard for me, I guess, is the issue here. Like, in terms of, I don't even know how to define them.
Yeah.
So, and that's another issue with emotional incest, actually, is boundary setting becomes like that you don't understand how to do it. But I'm not going to blame that on that, because that's the thing, right? I can blame everything on a problem.
Yeah.
And then I'm just getting rid of responsibility. Because the other side of emotional incest is you can actually end up with kids that are like way better. Like, on the positive side with the divorce, in a way, not positive exactly, but positive for me developmentally, is I'm probably a lot better at taking care of the psychological end of children, because I took care of you in a way, because I was the stable thing going back and forth.
Yeah.
Like, you have, and just as an older brother, like you have to learn so quickly to shut up your brother before your parents come back around, so you don't get in trouble when you like stabbed him in the eye or Like, you got to learn how to cheer him up fast. Which, that might be abusive on its own. I don't know. Like,
you gotta learn how to make a joke that you threw him through a wall.
Yeah. Well, no, that wasn't.
You kicked me through a wall.
That was two consenting children in a fight.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Siblings will understand that.
Yeah.
Single children go, what?
Or, well, the guy you used to live with, I don't know why, but his relationship's kind of like that too, where he was almost a single child.
Yeah.
In a way. It's kind of odd.
But I've fought...
I guess he was too close in age with his brother.
I've fought with every single one of my siblings.
Yeah.
Related and the step. Step.
Oh, man.
I've had, full-out fights with all of them. I mean, the two stepsisters stopped once I got bigger than them, but...
I haven't, but I have tried to severely hurt the older stepsister. And... I've rarely been angrier because she is way tougher than she looks. Like, I couldn't... It was like trying to fight Muhammad Ali. Like, she just kept dodging. It was like... It's like, let me hit you.
It's tough, something stringy,
Wow, it's like...
beef jerky, tough.
Yeah, but, beef jerky bends away as well as you hit it. Like, I would punch her. Like, I'd get, the nice feeling of a solid punch? Yeah. I'd punch her, but then she'd just kind of, bend backwards, and she wouldn't even lose her balance. She'd just, you. And it's like... If she was getting angry or scared or something, it'd be one, but she was just kind of what a loser. Like he's getting upset about such a simple thing, and I was like, oh, wow.
Siblings.
Yeah, but I mean that was on me, obviously. Mm-hmm. She did destroy my snowman. That's why I wanted to hurt her. Yeah. I like that snowman. You shouldn't destroy someone's snowman. I think she probably deserved a hit or two, really, but
yeah.
But on the other hand, I overreacted. I should have given her a This is weird, right? But I think as a parent as well, let's say corporal punishment, like spanking your child or whatever. I'm not necessarily against it, but the parent cannot be angry while doing it.
Yeah.
You have to hurt your child calmly. You have to, in cold blood.
Yeah.
If I had punched my stepsister in cold blood, she might have deserved. She needed a little smack upside the head.
Yeah.
But... in hot blood, that's me losing control, which ain't so good. So, I don't know what you call emotional incest between people that aren't related, but that was what was going on with this child and that boy. He was saying, please purify me, me. And so she was touching him on the head, get better, get better, get better. And so he's he's crying, snot coming out of his nose.
It's emotional abuse, or...
But it's more to that because it's disgusting.
Well, it's just a different level of it. You can murder someone by cutting their head off, or you can shoot them.
Right, but
there's very horrible ways to murder people. It's still murder.
I want to call it incest of some sort, or like psychic incest or something. There's a relying on someone significantly younger for you, relying on children, I guess in general, for emotional support. For emotional guidance, for spiritual guidance, is mean. It's and by that I mean the small. It's because I don't want to use pathetic because that assumes that you have something worth respecting. Whereas you're not even pitiful. You're mean. You're small. You're tiny. You are an insignificant, worthless human being because you need a child to be your emotional guide. And the thing is, what he then does is he This is kind of... Actually, it's tangential to my point, so I won't even go there. So remember how I told you about that woman forgiving that 40-year-old man for...
Yeah.
Very similar feeling there. Not as bad. Not nearly as bad. But... Another one, I was thinking, Greta Thunberg, right?
Yeah.
This 14-year-old girl saying, how dare you, to a bunch of adults going, oh, yes, we're so bad. Disgusting.
Yeah.
Now, 14-year-old... saying, I care about the environment, I'm going to try to do something about it, I'm actually okay with.
Yeah.
Adults thinking she's a moral guide or something to be impressed by is a different story. So our mom has this interesting story she told me just yesterday or something. A bunch of kids from some climate youth group or something got together with this list of 10 commandment demands sort of things, things we need to do, and brought it to her. Our mom works in the environments sector. And
that sounds remarkably similar to what happened to a senator in the United States, where a bunch of kids came to a senator with their demands, and the senator's like, all right, well, I've been doing this job for a while. So like,
So they gave it to mom, and like they had this whole lecture and speech and thing. And my mom looked at this list and she's like, yeah, we're doing half of those. Those 4 things don't work. And this is on you. So this is just a boring waste of my time.
Yeah.
It's like, it's our mom's job to care about the environment.
Yeah, when she worked the front office, there was this guy who come on and it's like, oh, I have to deal with him. I was like, can I like put a water wheel in the river next to my house? It's like, the water doesn't flow fast enough. To make it flow fast enough, you have to build a dam. You're not allowed to build a dam there because we already have one dam higher up. And it's just like huge list of problems with his ideas that to explain.
So the kids, they can say what they want, right? And it's maybe it's good for them to be trying to come up with ideas and whatnot. But actually going to the policymakers, like, come on, these people...
It's their life.
Our mom's been doing it for 20 years. I think she knows what she's doing better than you do. That have... Especially... Okay, so on the radio recently, I heard some guy from the local environmental group for something or other. I don't know what happened. It's been just in the last year, I think. Environmentalists, always kind of annoying, me being one, have become...
I'll agree with that.
Insufferable.
Yeah.
It just... And it's weird. Like, nobody talked about the environment until a year ago. Like, I was struggling to get people to talk about the environment in a meaningful way, right? Yeah. Like, I went to... I was doing a minors in environment at school. Like, I spent 3 years in... I was 1 year off of a degree, right? Yeah. Maybe half a year, depending on how I went about it, actually. And like this was my thing, and I would have loved people talking about the environment, but they're talking about it in the worst possible way. So this guy in the news was saying,
"You have no idea what you're talking about."
Well, this is what he was saying, right? And I'm talking about it because it's related to the moral guidance of like this child. Like, I need this child to make me feel pure and better. And he was saying that there's nothing people can do. Like, you can reduce, he said you can, like, you know, turn out your lights. You can reduce how much water you use in your bath, low flow shower heads, better lights, get electric car, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, the thing that really matters is stuff like the Canadian government's deal with the plastic industry and the importation on plastic and the importation on oil and exportation of oil. And so he was saying, at the end of the day, it's about policy. Like, the government needs to change policy. So first of all, why is the Canadian government importing plastic and exporting oil? Because people want oil and people want plastic. If people didn't want plastic and oil, none of that would happen.
Yeah.
And then, it's like, okay. But he thinks maybe, like, you know, governments... they can do a bit more top-down sort of approach that will get results faster.
Yeah.
Which I'm against. California's been doing it. I don't like it. If coal was so bad, people wouldn't be using it. And they really weren't. And then you just made it a law anyways, and then you caused issues.
The electric car industry is a brilliant example of people want electric cars because they're nice.
No, you know who has done way more for the environment than this stupid activist who was on the radio? Elon Musk, who's... I don't know if he even cares about the environment. Like, I'm not sure Elon Musk cares about the environment. Like, he really cares about space travel, basically. That's his thing. It's just everything else is tangential. I think he probably likes money, work, and environment. And space travel. Like, he might care about the environment.
I think he likes making things.
Yeah. Oh. But, like, the whole thing where you have to rent the heating in your Tesla car, he is not a consumer-friendly person.
Yeah.
And a consumer-friendly... Like, environment and consumer-friendly kind of go hand in hand. So I don't think Elon Musk cares about the environment.
Yeah.
But he's way better for the environment. Also, who was it recently? A natural gas company. Well, it's all of them, really.
Yeah.
They are probably... no, actually, yeah, I will say Shell and, like, BP... Well, maybe not BP, but that was an accident. What are they? I can't even remember their names. Anyways, the oil companies are probably doing more for the environment than this guy. Even though they're the lobbyists that had the lobbyists that confused the issue in the first place. Mm. So then the person on the radio gave him a chance to redeem himself. She said, okay, so you're acting for change. So what can a person do in their individual life to help the environment?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's hear what he has to say. He said, go to your representatives, lobby them, and ask them to, like, ban single-use plastics and do this and do this. And you don't care about personal responsibility at all.
Interesting story as well with the banning single use is why we had the paper or plastic choice is plastic bags were environmental because you weren't cutting down trees for paper.
Well, they're going to
bags.
ban paper bags as well.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, that whole thing is like that step of like, well, we need to do this because all the trees are dying. It's like you're really not looking anywhere.
That's what the top-down approach does.
Yeah,
is it causes issues in places you didn't see because you aren't God. You can't see everything. Mm-hmm. But if there was only like 3 trees left and you needed, or let's say there's only 1 million trees left, you need to act quickly. Maybe sometimes the top-down approach is appropriate.
Yeah.
I don't actually mind the top-down approach too much, I think. Like, I don't like it, but I can see where it might be necessary. However, if your whole shtick is removing personal responsibility, that's disgusting. On the radio today, this morning, I think, there was some other thing about people talking about, like, we want the government to do this for this and this for us and this for us. Why is it suddenly, like, in the last year, I guess because of the pandemic, people have gotten used to relying on the government, maybe. Yeah. But suddenly people are begging to be enslaved. So I used to think that the 2 biggest issues on Earth were, like, I thought about this in context with the American election. If I had to choose between Hillary and Trump, who would I choose? And I decided I would choose Trump if I had to choose. And the reason I would choose Trump over Hillary is because I consider there to be 2 massive issues in the world. The biggest issues affecting humans. Yeah. The second biggest was environment. And I thought Hillary would probably be better for environment than Trump. I still think that would probably be true. Although with this whole weird top-down thing, maybe not anymore. But let's say she was even. Yeah. But the biggest issue I thought facing the world was nukes. Yeah. And Hillary Clinton does not seem to like Russia at all. Yeah. And Trump actually did all right with North Korea. Like, he actually eased tension somewhat. Now, I believe Trump did order more drone strikes than any president over the course of a term. And I was thinking about this, and I wonder, because I was looking at Obama and George Bush, and Obama did way more than George Bush. Mm. But I was thinking, like, George Bush didn't really have the technology for most of it. Like, and if George Bush, and you look at, like, Obama's different terms, and you see that, like, he stops bombing Iraq, maybe, like, basically at all. Yeah. And then, but then, the place that he was bombing a bunch, Syria, maybe, Trump didn't bomb basically at all, but Trump bombed Somalia to pieces. Yeah. I think, like, I don't remember the exact countries, but it's something like that. And you realize that the presidents might not be making the choices so much as the conflicts. Yeah. Now, I still don't think they should be using drones because like I've said before, I hate drones so much that even if there's a conflict, don't use drones. Mm-hmm. They're wrong. Can you imagine, right? This is ridiculous. You're living in...
You filthy Englishman, using your bow to shoot me. Kill me like a man with your sword.
No, declare war on me like a man.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Chinese drones were constantly flying above Canada, just randomly blowing up houses? We would... China would be the most evil country on Earth.
That might make Canada angry enough to do something.
It's ridiculous. Like, how can the United States get away with it? Well, just because they've got a really powerful military. Yeah. Like, the only countries that can actually stop drones are Russia and China. And even they probably, like, I don't even think the United States really can stop. Like, drones are stealthy. That's their whole thing. Yeah. They're hard to find. And I know that Russia has shot down a couple drones. Oh, yeah. And
Canada shot down a few drones in just like, what the heck is that thing? Okay, we're just going to shoot it. Like, we've, it's now a policy that we ask the United States, is that yours?
Yeah, I think in NWT something like that happened.
Yeah, well, we asked them, is that yours? Because before, basically, I think it's that Northwest Territory, something flew over, and we're just like, that thing is scary. And so a Canadian fighter shot it down. And the United States is like, what the heck are you doing? You shot down one of our drones. Are you, like, attacking us? Like, you were flying a drone above us and you didn't tell us it was yours. And so instead of the United States saying, we're going to fly drones above you, now we say, is that your drone? And if they don't give us a response in time, we shoot it.
Like, it's almost it's good in a way, but it's almost a shame that Russia and the United States are, like, comparable in power. Because seriously, like, from a justice standpoint, the moment Russia detected a drone, like, well, not even a drone. What was his name? Bob World, the spy plane guy that was shot down in Russia.
Yeah.
Like, that should be a declaration of war right there. Like, stop spying on us. Like, and obviously it would have been bad for everyone if there had been a war, and so they didn't have one. But at the very least, Russia should be allowed to say to the United States, like, yo, like, 4 billion, give.
Yeah.
100 billion.
Gibbs.
Maybe a trillion. Like, yeah, I think, like, how much does a war cost? Like, give us $1 trillion. You were spying on. This should be a declaration of war.
There's not even smiling. You were in our airspace.
Yeah. Like, I think that Russia should be able to say... No, I think flying a drone over a country should be a declaration of war. I think...
Yeah, well, that is. It's you're flying a weapon in someone else's airspace without permission.
I think Russia should be able to say, like, hey, a war would be terrible for the entire world between us. We are both way too powerful for a war. Give us $1 trillion. And, like, the United States should have to pay. Mm. And, like... And Russia says, you do that or we go to war. Because that is disgusting. Mm-hmm. I hate drones so much. What were we even talking about? Presidents... Oh, yeah, Hillary and... So I thought the biggest issue was nukes, and I thought Hillary was far more likely to start a nuclear war than Trump. Which I don't seem to be in the majority there. A lot of people thought Trump would be the warmonger, but he doesn't... Besides the massive drone strikes, he doesn't actually... He seemed to be quite a peaceful sort.
He brokered peace.
Yeah. Besides all the drone strikes. But again... Maybe that's just how the United States likes to mess with other countries. I don't... Yeah, anyways. But I now think that environment isn't the second biggest issue. I think it's the third. I think this... Because an issue... social issues...
I think it's fourth.
All right, well, we'll hear yours. But so I think the second biggest issue now is slavery. And not like Qatar, but slavery of... yourself. People are begging the governments to be enslaved. Now, why is that worse than environment? Because environment lasts forever. Like, if we mess it up now, we could have, like, for 10,000 years, people being broken. Whereas, you look at any country 100 years ago, 400 years ago, they had probably... Like, we were 2 years ago living at the height of civil rights ever, basically. It was this weird blip in history, basically. Yeah. Like, even if you look at, like, the 40s, there was a whole bunch of authoritarianism in all the governments. And then it just became more and more free until, like, the 70s, and then even more free, really, because of the internet. And then that started getting clamped down, but that was just getting clamped down, not legally, but sort of, like, the companies were taking it on themselves. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it's actually being legally enforced by the governments with the pandemic. Now, why is that worse than the environment? And I think it's because I've become more in line, or thought about it more, probably just changed a bit too, with the idea of the ends don't justify the means. Yeah. It might be better long-term to worry about the environment first and people's freedom second. However, abandoning everything that makes humans is not an acceptable price. Yeah. The means justify the end, I think, to a degree. The ends don't justify the means, but I think the means do justify the end. Yeah. And so what makes the environment fourth? AI?
No, China. And bioweapons.
I don't know.
Well,
I can't decide if China is incredibly powerful or incredibly weak.
Well, paper tiger is the statement. But, so I haven't corrected... I haven't done my own research on this, and I probably should.
Probably.
Yes.
I might be able to correct you on some stuff.
Yes. A guy was talking about, so there's medical advancement in the United States that is, so it's looking at your people's genetics. Yeah. And so it's meant to try to help people with, like, genetic diseases and stuff. But scientist development has crossover. And so military always crosses over into it.
So CRISPR technology you're talking about?
It's not CRISPR. No. So what is it's looking at your genes. Yep. It's sort of like CRISPR, but it's like looking at your genes, doing stuff with them, but also there's targeted things. So if you are male versus female, it can basically see that. And there's a development which is, so it's a bullet, and you put something on the end of the bullet, and so when you shoot someone, it makes the injury worse because it damages their DNA.
Right.
And the development has basically such a...
It's like bleach.
Yeah. The development has basically suggested that, like, so you could basically, like, a family line, basically, you could target them specifically, like a genetic group. And so that the United States budget, like, they're just suggesting this, they're starting working on it, and so they have however much money into that, and they've made this much progress. So China's budget, the United States budget on that is 2% of what China's budget is at in the same area. And Chinese officials have talked about it, and I did look at these things, like them talking about it, and like it was being translated, that they want to make war more, was it like wholesome or like less cruel?
Okay.
By basically, oh, you're not Han Chinese, then we can release a disease in the world that will target everyone but Han Chinese. And also we have control of the cures to this disease as well, so we can give it to you. So we basically are holding this hammer above your head of, oh, you're the second of the group, well, we can just kill you.
Right.
And their research development is going on, and they're saying they want to use that, and it's like, it's going to make war better because there's going to be less death because of that. And that's the same thing that was said about mustard gas. And also, in Chinese... So China has agreed not to use bioweapons, not break to connection. However, problem with China is they will break their promises if it's in defense of the state. And they have basically said that. We'll break our promises if we have to defend China. And they consider the whole world a threat to China, and they're defending China right now by developing that.
Right, but I would actually use the Geneva Convention as a good reason why to be less concerned about that.
All right.
Because... well, what makes that worse than nukes, mustard gas, bubonic plague, Ebola? Like, Ebola is great because if you send Ebola to the United States, for example, you will kill millions of people, but you won't actually kill any Chinese because they'll all be dead before they get to China. So you could actually do some... Or a nuke. Like, if China... sends the kill all but hands Chinese virus to the United States can just nuke China.
Well, it's more of the concept that China's willing to develop and do that stuff, and it's just...
The United States built nukes.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I mean, I guess it kind of puts it on the level of nukes in a way.
Yeah, but it's also like how China's going about it. So they're gathering like all other countries' DNA, basically sequence it, and they don't let Chinese, like other medical companies take Chinese DNA. It's like, no, you can't have it, but they're like gaining information from everyone through various different means. Like a pregnancy test, they have this whole thing going through and getting like a bunch of information from the Chinese company, and then it's like, nope, you can't gain information from us. So they're basically like taking information in but not laying it out. I
think technological advancements are scary, to be sure, like medical and robotics and
well, I guess it's sort of, my fear is the development of something nasty. I don't know.
But we have nukes, so does it matter?
I guess.
Like, I mean, it's as bad as nukes, so it's really bad. But like, is there any reason to pre-worry something on an equal level? Because now the one concern I could see is if China developed something that killed all Han Chinese, not Han Chinese, and was able to deploy it in a way that was not detected, and that could be bad. But I don't know how... It's always hard to say where technology is at, but I don't actually think technology is at that point.
Also, I think something to assume, which I was thinking about this at the same time, is... I'd
be much more scared of China's nukes right now. Anyways.
So in Rick and Morty, whenever Rick fights the president has a bunch of insane technology that normal people don't have. And it's like, oh, he's holding back just for himself or whatever.
Yeah.
But my thoughts have been, and this kind of been true throughout history, like other countries have gotten nukes, is there's always going to be spies in the government, especially where weapons are going to be made. And I doubt you'll have like a year advantage, like when you come up with something, like maybe 6 months.
The Russians took I think it was 8 months or something to build a nuke.
Yeah.
After they learned about it. So yeah, it's pretty impressive how quick. I think there is a great once you know something can exist, it becomes much easier to make.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know nukes are real, then you have no idea if what you're doing is worth it. But if you're like, okay, nukes are real, then you can put all your energy into doing something like it. Yeah, no, I think bioweapons, like undetectable ones especially, could be very scary.
Also, I just don't like bioweapons are sort of the thing where it's like a nuke it hits a place and it's like, oh, that's bad. Or there's like nuclear bombs going off everywhere. But a bioweapon, I mean, it could accidentally get out. But also it's like, oh, we miscalculated with this bioweapon. It was only meant to like wipe out London. Now 99% of the world's population is gone.
But like virology labs are already doing that, because what they do is they will try to predict the next iteration of a virus, and then they will develop cures for it. But of course, you're building a stronger virus every time you do that. So
So I think virology labs should be like outlawed.
Well, they're very useful for.
Sorry, I think gainer function research should be outlawed.
Gainer?
It's making a virus stronger.
Right, but then you know about it, right? Then you know how to deal with it. If it happens in the real world, then you're ready already.
Yeah, but what if it gets out?
Well, then you're ready. Because that was the whole point, was you were getting ready. I think,
It's a bit like Dr. Death.
How so?
Well, it's just like doing something horrible for.
But you're not like murdering people with.
Okay, it's like it's the other walk to Dr. Death.
Who's Dr. Death?
The German guy.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Right, but you're not. I suppose they're probably murdering a lot of monkeys. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, and it's sort of like the other, like it's approaching the same goal, but from the other direction.
But isn't that a good thing? Like Dr. Death was killing people to test stuff, but if you can test stuff without killing people, then...
Well, it's like it's using the same path, but walking different.
But you're not killing people to gain technology. How is that this? Like,
you're gaining technology that could kill people.
Right. Like trains, cars, planes, guns, dynamite, X-rays.
Look, when you're doing research, right?
So you hate technology.
No. When you're doing research,
yes,
to make a bulletproof vest,
yes.
So you're protecting people from bullets.
Yes.
Well, it's a hard hat better. It's not even military. So hard hat development, right?
Yes.
If you screw up with hard hat development, you're not going to kill 1 million people.
Right. So, like the CERN reactor. I mean, I could be with you there.
Yeah.
Like CERN could have created a black hole and wiped out Earth.
Really unlikely.
Yeah, and these viruses, like, they have safety precautions. What's your opinion on nuclear energy?
It's fine in the right amount.
You might want to reconcile those two ideas. Oh, that's another thing with the environment. So, on one side, you got these insane people saying, take away all my responsibility, enslave me, government, please.
That's what we're talking about, right? Yes.
Right? And then on the other side, you've got, so like I'll call them roughly left and right, or progressive and normal, but on the one side you have like all these people saying like, oh, enslave me, government, please, and protect the environment. And then on the other side of the environmental debate, I heard like Short Fadataku, right? He was saying nuclear power is the only obvious solution. It's the only viable solution to climate change, environment, and everything. When did he become an expert in environment? And he's not the only one. I've heard so many. I've heard Jordan Peterson. I've heard Scott Adams. When did these three people, and probably many, and well, it seems like many more that I've heard. A lot of people on the right, but not all. Like Jordan Peterson, Scott Adams, and Short Fadataku are not on the right. But the non-progressive types all decided that nuclear power was the only safe, only viable option. When did that happen? And why did I, who studied for 3 years, not learn that? So in 2015, Google, using Google Earth data, determined that there was enough space on all the rooftops in the United States for solar panels to power the entire United States.
Yeah.
Now, solar panels, every 18 months, halve in cost and double in efficiency. That was 2015. So, every 3 years, solar panels get 8 times better. So, they are 64 times better than they were when Google did the study. You need, like 2% of theoretically, like 2% of the United States roofs have solar panels.
But, Cameron.
Yes.
You poor foolish
Okay,
boy.
well, no, that'd be cost. So I'm wrong on the numbers. It would be 4 times 4. So
Poor,
16 times better.
Poor foolish boy. The sun isn't always shining.
Yeah, okay, so batteries exist.
Nope. The sun isn't always shining, Cameron. That's why we need pure nuclear power. The sun isn't always shining.
Yeah, okay, so there's this thing called batteries. Now you might say, well, there's not enough lithium. There's more than one battery. So, let me teach you about batteries, okay?
No, not even there's not enough lithium. Do you have any idea how much lithium there is in just Canada alone?
There's not enough lithium.
No, there is. There is so much
No,
lithium.
there's not.
There's tons of lithium.
Yeah, but there's not enough. There's literally not enough.
Well, I think we've looked at different things.
They've done the numbers on the amount of lithium that is known about on Earth versus converting...
Even like in ocean, all that stuff?
Converting all cars to electric. And, no, in the major lithium deposits. So in China and...
Like, there's...
Canada, I guess you said.
There's drawing lithium out of water, which there's a ton... There's so much lithium.
Right. So what I've seen is that if everyone went electric, there wouldn't be enough lithium for all the batteries.
All right.
Like electric cars. Maybe that's wrong. But let me tell you about batteries, right?
Yeah.
Like it was the mega factory that was the issue, I think, where they thought you couldn't have like Tesla power walls everywhere and whatnot. So you have a mountain, right?
Yeah.
You have a hose pipe pointed to a swimming pool on top of the mountain.
Yeah.
That is a battery.
Yeah.
You use your power during the day to pump water to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And then when night comes, you let the water run back down the mountain and power a generator.
I have another one for you, which was trying to figure out how to sell power to other countries that could have advanced storage. And this one was really cool, which is steel wool.
Ah.
So you make steel wool.
And then you burn it.
You burn it in the other country. Then you got these chunks of slag, right? You send that back over. They turn it into steel wool again, send it back to you.
You could do the same with piezophoric crystals, I guess.
Yeah.
But steel wool is probably way easier because
it's really cheap. There's a lot of...
There's a lot of iron.
Well, it's iron wool, I guess. But yeah, it's basically...
Well, I think it's made of magnesium or something weird.
Yeah, but it's basically like this whole thing of... It's literally a battery. You burn it, and then it becomes slag. Yeah. Then the charging it is processing it back into the wool.
Yeah.
And then lighting fire. And it's like the math was really, really good for it. The only worry was the byproduct of burning it. And also, I guess it didn't go for it. But
you can do the same thing with hydrogen.
Yeah, salt as well. So there's a kind
of... You could sell countries hydrogen, and then they could give you their water back.
Yeah.
And then you could...
It's not so much of a you can sell it, but there's solar panels, even in the States. So solar power, which is these giant mirrors which focus heat onto these pipes. And the pipes are full of salt. And basically, the salt becomes a liquid. And liquid salt turns out to be one of the best materials in the world for retaining its own heat because it insulates itself. And so you have a bunch of liquid salt, and then when the sun's not shining, you boil water with the liquid salt and get power out of it by spinning a turbine.
Classic. Yeah. So that's... it wasn't piezophoric crystals I was thinking of. Those are the ones you squeeze for electricity. I was thinking of the ones you heat.
No.
Or the ones that you, like, smash for electricity.
Yeah.
I guess that's piezophoric. What are hot pads? Maybe they are. Okay. Anyways. So the thing about the lithium, actually, is... That was 2016 when I was looking at it. I don't know when you did.
2020.
Okay. So... And I don't know in relation what yours was about, like if they were just talking about for electric cars or for...
Whole world development of lithium.
Right, but what does that mean? Because that could be... Like, we have enough lithium on Earth for how much we can use. Yeah. But if we made a bunch of gigafactories all around the world, we would run out. So the question isn't, do we have enough to meet our demand? It's, do we have enough to meet a vastly increased demand?
I think the answer is still yes.
Because what I saw was no, but... you know how
Well, there's all like
our oil reserve doubled. Like
we are going to run out of oil, and it's like, oh no! And then even on that, so there's sticking a pipe in the ground, drawing up oil. Then there's the oil sands, which is a different way to get oil.
Yeah, which not ideal. Like you can always do rougher and rougher things like fracking or oil sands or biofuel. Like biofuel, you're just making it yourself at that point. And that's even more devastating, really, because you have to convert so much land towards it. But what I was seeing, anyways, was that there's suddenly a lot of experts on the environment on both sides, on all the stuff that I wasn't told about when I was doing it myself. So yeah, and I want to clarify on the solar panels. It wouldn't be 64 times better. It would be 8 times better, and 64 times cheaper. Well, 8 times cheaper and 8 times better. So it would be like
a net gain of
64 times.
Yeah.
So you still need a huge amount of space, but it would be way cheaper than it was back when Google did the study. And the other thing is, I don't know if the solar panel ratio kept up or not. It was keeping up fairly solidly up until our dad bought solar. No, quite a bit after our dad bought solar panels, 2019 or so, because he had done calculations on solar panels when he bought a huge amount, and he figured, okay, these will pay off in 20 years, I think it was. And then 5 years later, he did the calculations again, and he's like, if I bought solar panels now, they would have paid off faster.
Why do you think there's solar panels on the roof now?
Right. But it's like actually not buying solar panels is the most efficient way to use solar panels. Like, if you want to save the environment, don't use solar panels, just wait.
I wonder if the expertise of saying why we need nuclear power is coming from France.
They have their French propaganda.
Well,
didn't France shut down all their nuclear plants?
No. So all the countries around France shut down their nuclear. So
no, didn't France run out of water or something?
That was a different thing. France ran out of water, yes. However, that's a misreported problem because France ran out of water, but you don't use water in nuclear reactors. You use heavy water, and heavy water is made through getting water. However, France's amount of heavy water is so great they have in reserve that them running out of water wasn't a problem. Well, his problem is it was so hot that if they used the reactor to do that process, there could be worse problems. So it wasn't they ran out, it was that the heat made the reactors dangerous to use.
You don't use water to cool heavy reactors. Fukushima begs to differ.
So Fukushima...
They were desperate.
Yes. It's also got hit by a tsunami.
Yeah.
Fukushima basically made a whole bunch of other countries go, we're going to stop using nuclear. And so Germany and a bunch of other countries near France quit using nuclear power. Now, France produces so much nuclear power that they have access, and so they sell power to Germany and the neighboring countries. What's it called? The place that's underwater?
Netherlands?
The Netherlands also sells wind power to Germany.
Yeah.
So
Germany has a massive amount of wind power as well, and solar power.
Yeah, but so basically Germany had to go back to coal because they weren't working on power, and then France was like, hey, we got a lot of power, we could sell it to you. And so it could be that France produces so much power purely on nuclear.
Oh, so here's something interesting. I was reading a book of essays by Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett was the PR, the press release guy for a nuclear power plant for 8 years.
Yeah.
He was talking about how nuclear power plants will say something like, we have 3 separate fail-safes. And he would laugh when he heard that about nuclear plants. Like, he's not anti-nuclear or anything, but he would laugh about the idea of like 3 separate fail-safes. Because he said, this is how 3 separate fail-safes are made. You go to some guy named Fred, and you say to him, all right, we need 3 separate fail-safes for the plant. You have a day to do it. And so Fred's like, okay, great. So he comes up with 3 fail-safes, and he sticks them onto the plant. Yeah, and because he can do that in a day. It's no problem. But then they have to have power, right? Yeah. So he wires them all up, and then he's running the wires to the power supply. And so he drills a hole in the wall to run the first wire through. And he's like, you'd be ashamed to drill 3 holes in this wall. So he braids the 3 power cords together, sticks them through the hole, and the hole comes out underneath the metal shelf with the wobbly leg that if it was hit by a forklift would bump into it and slice them, and nobody would be able to tell. And then he plugs it in. And so, because he's saving time, he just he takes the 3 separate fail-safes and connects them all to the same power source, all through the same dependency, all with the same issue of collapsing at once.
Do you know what the failsafe at Chernobyl was that stopped it from being really bad?
I want to guess. Like, okay, Ukraine, basically Russian, TNT.
Kind of along the right idea. So, do you know about the elephant foot?
Yeah.
Do you do you know its location?
In the reactor?
Yeah, but it should be a lot higher up than it is.
Also, they collapse the floor or something?
So, every single reactor in the world, well, maybe not can do because they have a different design, but the old style reactors had basically this block of concrete that was incredibly thick.
Yeah.
And below it is a really, really deep hole full of denatured some sort of radioactive material. And so basically, this is the ultimate failsafe of nuclear reactors, which is the material's getting super hot, and this is part of the reason why it's called meltdown. So the material's gone super hot, it's become a liquid,
Yeah.
and it's going to melt a hole through the concrete below it, and then it's going to drop into this hole and get surrounded by this denatured old nuclear material, which will help absorb the impact and heat of it and stop it from going critical. So the ultimate failsafe of Chernobyl was really dropping it down a hole. Yeah. And so, oh no, nuclear problem, buried in the dirt.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about nuclear is...
and it's a very practical, actually, failsafe as well, is it's going to melt and turn into a puddle, so let's have it melt somewhere.
I think that's the thing about the argument about nuclear power is that well, both sides aren't addressing any of the issues. So you have the one side saying it's very safe. Like, really, there's not much that can go catastrophically wrong with a nuclear power plant. I mean, Chernobyl did, but that's quite rare. And it was quite a bad plant. The new ones that are better, much better. Even if you have the fail-safes, like, you're not going to have much wrong happen still, probably. People can talk about, well, it's the risk. Like, there's this risk that you suddenly lose, like, a city, like Chernobyl.
Yeah.
That's bad.
That can't even happen, though, with new reactors.
But that doesn't matter if it can or can't. I think what the issue is nuclear waste. Because when civilization fails 100,000 years from now, language has degraded. Symbology has changed to the point it's unrecognizable. And
someone's going to one of those, what are they called? Concrete paving lots in France and is going to dig about.
Well, no, the plate tectonics of the Earth will have shifted so much. Well, that's the thing. Where they bury it tends to not have much tectonic activity. But there's going to be some cave, like a glacier carves out a chunk of France or like a chunk of the Icelands or whatever. And, well, not the Icelands. That'd be a terrible idea. Actually, is it? Anyways. And some like Neolithic person digs into, like you said, into like a clay pit.
Yeah. And
there's this metal barrier with like skulls on it, and he's like, what's this like weird superstitious, must be like some superstitious site of a previous time, like this silly human superstition, like we're advanced peoples, because they might even be medieval or Renaissance, right? So they crack open this bad boy and they just all die. It's like, oh, it's a cursed tomb.
Yeah, they'll learn not to crack open cursed tombs with skull and crossbones on the barrels. You leave those alone, sonny boy.
Provided they can communicate it to You are permanently tainting the Earth. And now I've heard there's reactors that can actually use nuclear waste.
Yeah. So the counter to that is the reactors that we use. Do you know what their nuclear waste would do to you if it was like pressed against your head?
Burn you?
No. It'd be the same as being in an airplane.
That doesn't mean anything to me.
Okay, so...
No, why that doesn't mean anything is I'm in an airplane for at max like 2 hours once a year.
Yeah. All right, so...
If I was in an airplane all the time, I might get cancer. I don't know. Like, probably. There's a lot of cosmic radiation up there. The astronauts aren't allowed to be in space for more than 15 months or something.
Yeah, so... It's so the endpoint is so denatured that you could literally walk around with it all the time and not be at risk. It's like the same thing as like people being worried about phone radiation.
Then why don't we just dump waste into the sewers? There must be something wrong with it, right?
The reason...
And it's a heavy metal, isn't it?
So the heavy metal aspect
that can't be good for you.
One of the problems of the denatured. So it's like lead.
Right.
So you don't go around chewing on lead.
Right.
And so disposing on stays place perm. The other reason why certain nuclear materials you really want to dispose of them and have it in a place no one can get is another thing about Canadian reactors, which is
you can make nukes.
You can make dirty nukes out of denatured material because there's a process which is really cool with nuclear waste, which is you can reconstitute it. So if you have like I'm going to get the chemistry horribly wrong here, but I'm just going to use this example. If you have thorium and you use it up and it's broken down, I don't remember what thorium becomes after you've used it up, but you take that stuff, then you take a huge amount of it, and you can basically put it under pressure. You put it under pressure and do something weird to it. I don't remember. Like you heat it up and you put it on pressure. You can actually make it back into a nuclear material that is enriched again. And then that stuff can have all sorts of fun things happen with it. Yeah, and you don't want that kicking about.
What I'm going to say about nuclear power in general is that I don't know enough about nuclear power to really be for or against it.
Also, if by the time the plates tectonics have shifted, most of that stuff will have gone through at least one half-life.
Well, earthquakes and whatnot can happens. Like plate tectonics do not move slowly. It's like bam, oh, there's an earthquake. So
yeah, but
the average time maybe.
Like one of the things when people say to break down, it'll have to go through like 20 half-lives, and like each half-life takes however long. Once the material has gone through at least one half-life, it's way less dangerous.
So I'm not going to be for or against nuclear power.
Yeah.
But I find it very odd that it suddenly became the be-all and end-all when geothermal seems to be, for example, the most powerful power source we have access to.
Yeah. Well, let's say second. The sun's pretty powerful.
But that's just general heating.
Yeah.
Like we,
like our planet versus the sun power output, we're nothing.
Okay, so the sun, but in terms of like powering your phone or something.
Yeah.
I think geothermal seems to be where you'd get most of your power. Nuclear power way up there as well. But then wind and solar are both massive. Hydro is massive. And there's ways to do microhydro, which is also quite good. You can
get power out of trees.
Fraser, is it just called Fraser in BC? Is like entirely powered by a river.
Yeah.
Like just like a creek basically running down a mountain.
A group of scientists recently got a ton of money for getting power out of photosynthesis at a good amount. So they're stealing power from the trees and charging their phones with it.
Well, you can do stuff like because trees have a different acidity in their soil.
Yeah.
So there's electricity running through trees' roots. So you can buy like potted plants that you can like just plug your phone into. I imagine the draw is really low, but
yeah, no, this is different. This is like doing some weird freaky abomination of.
You can also
science.
get there's algae or bacteria that eat CO2 and produce electricity as a byproduct.
Yeah.
I mean, there's I don't know why nuclear power is the only answer when there's like
nukes. Do you remember that whole thing? You like have a
Project Orion.
Yeah, you have a mountain and you drop a nuke into it.
Oh, not Project Orion was the spaceship thing.
Yeah, no. So it's basically you have our mines to get uranium or whatever.
Yeah.
So you have all those. This was actually almost done. Besides the one major problem with it, which I'll let you guess what the major problem is. But so you got a massive pit and you drop a nuke in it, and so like no one's going to get harmed, and then you get the power out of the nuke.
Well, how do you get the power?
Yeah, that's the major problem. So basically, like it was actually like seriously thought about as like nuclear reactors. Like we could blow up a bomb. It produces so much power, and then we can like use that to charge so much power produced. Like all cars can run lights in all cities.
I know what you do. You build a giant rail around the entire Earth, right?
Yeah.
And you stick this massive magnet on the rail. Okay.
Yeah.
And you build like the giant copper coil around this earth-spanning rail. And you stick a bunch of cushions on one end of the magnet. Then you use the nuke to repel the magnet around and around the Earth. Just this massive electric generator.
Besides how absolutely ridiculous that is to undertake as a project, there's a second problem with that, which it would screw up our Earth's rotation majorly.
Okay, you have one going the other way as well.
That would still screw it up majorly.
They're the same weight, and you just like balances nicely. And then like you just hear this like, well, like people in Ecuador, like when they want to cross the road, you just hear this ding ding ding, and if you don't get out of the way, you're just turned into paste at the speed of sound.
You're atomized.
It's just like this 1,000,000-ton magnet traveling the speed of sound, just like you're ding ding ding, and then like all the cars go flying towards the tracks as like the magnet pulls.
Also, the amount of air that would be dispersed by this.
Well, it's in a vacuum. It's like the Hyperloop.
The amount of power that thing would produce might be able to maintain the vacuum it's in.
And he's like a Ziploc, and just people have a job of like sucking the straws, just like
vacuums are so expensive to make. The larger you get out of the vacuum, the more expensive it gets until you get to the scale of space, and that's incredibly cheap.
So you just stick a pipe to space from your loop to let the air out.
The amount of rawness with that. So once you make your anti-gravity device and you start bleeding the Earth of its atmosphere,
Hunter, air isn't affected by gravity; it floats. Duh. Learn science.
Oh, that hurts.
Better than listening to CBC. Oh, goodness.
After doing 2 years of physics with a physics teacher who was very interested in nuclear power and actually like did studies with a class, like we were a part of the active study.
Sounds like propaganda to me.
It was a Canada-wide study of nuclear power.
Now, I was in a non-propaganda environmentalist course with a communist teacher in Victoria. She was great though, because like, you know how communists are so like enslave me daddy type people?
Wasn't she hippity hoppity, there's no such thing as private property?
Yeah, but she was like grassroots communist. She was like, hey look, I just made some applesauce, everyone have some. Hey, I made some bread, everyone have some. Like, she just gave away everything she had.
You should tragedy of the commons to her.
Well, I considered it, like when the applesauce came to me, like I didn't consider it then, but looking back, I kind of wish I just like guzzled the applesauce.
Yes, tragedy of the commons.
But I think she actually made her point that collective guilt actually prevents people from abusing the system to a degree.
Until you have one psychopath who takes charge of the class.
But like, you got to respect her, right? Like, she living what she preaches, give away everything she owns. You can respect that. That's charity. Like, that's like a monk. That is working communism. It's you live in a capitalist society and you give away everything you own. Then suddenly everyone's happy. Actually, in Brothers Karamazov, they talk about that, how like society works best not if the government forces you to catch everyone, but if you realize that you love your neighbor and you will help them no matter what happens to them. And so it's grassroots, ground up socialism, basically, rather than top down socialism.
Yeah.
Or you have someone like Hassan Piker who just doesn't give away anything he owns and says he wants the government to do it for him.
I was thinking about that idea. So there's a whole bunch of old parks and buildings and museums in the UK, right? And they exist because some guy got ridiculously wealthy.
Yeah.
Then he donated a building, and he like made a park, or he like.
Well, I told you about my plan to tax the rich, like on 20 podcasts ago, right? Or you like let people buy whatever title they want.
Yeah. Well, there's that, but
like I am Lord of the Imperium Musk.
Yeah, but even that, my problem with that is the same reason why. So there's this thing we have, which is basically the rich can give to charity, and they don't get taxed as much.
Yes, that's the point.
Yeah, because they're giving to charity.
Yeah, that's by design.
Yes.
I don't know why that's seen as a tax dodge, because it's like, wait, we want the charities to have
money. Yeah, but my problem with it is very different, I think, than other people's problems. And I could be completely wrong and completely off base here. But I think doing that, like, okay, the Bill and Melinda's Gate is actually a good example of against me. Like, that's already a point against me. But by doing that, you stop from, I'll donate a park to my community.
Right.
Because this rich person is like, I can just give money to this charity that will help with this problem here. And so It's delocalizes the charity of wealthy people.
Yeah, I could see that.
And
like a bigger charity doesn't let you directly interact with the community.
Yeah, and I think there's something in like it's a mix because there's something good. I mean, even like I donate a bunch of money to the school. Like there's this whole plot point. Like my daddy donates so much money to the school. If you go against me, then like your life will be hell. But
I think part of the issue is like we had a guy recently pass away here in Whitehorse, I think, who was never a very rich man. In terms of like he had a normal job, but he didn't spend like any money. So when he died, he had like $3 million or something, and he just donated it to it was a kids club or something. I don't remember what he did. But he donated all his money, which is very nice of him. And I don't know if we can say that Bill Gates doesn't do that where he lives. The problem with Bill Gates, imagine he lived here. Yeah. Right? He couldn't give away all his money.
No.
You almost need like a mega charity somewhere to give your money to, because
there's the fun like an example is Ike Penner Award is so he had a bunch of money, Ike Penner, and it's a fund basically every year to give student like it's every single year is a prize gala. There's a different fund like that.
Yeah.
Of people who pass away, and it's like every year give
the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, give this person whatever amount of money.
Yeah.
And then the Nobel Peace Prize self-sustains itself by and actually is inside an investment firm, so it bleeds money out of stocks it's invested in and it's kept managed.
Nobel got rich out of inventing dynamite, so he was able to.
He invented dynamite to be safe.
Yeah, well, that's but you don't want that because you don't want any technology to exist because it could be used for evil.
Yeah.
Like imagine the hard hat development, right? They're like this hard hat will be twice as strong, and then like boom, it blows up and like everyone dies. Okay, I couldn't even strawman your argument effectively. Like you're saying like when the cost of your research could kill everyone, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. Yeah. Such as AI or the CERN reactor or nukes or and I see that as a legitimate.
I think it's also sort of self-preference. Okay, this is just like I think this might be insanity, but so like we're trying to research like to like everyone be healthier, get rid of plagues, like stop in the future. We're predicting that. Yeah. That's a pretty noble goal. So CERN reactor is I want to smash two things together and see what happens. And if it goes wrong, it'll create a black hole, right? Whereas this thing, if it goes wrong, it'll create a disease that wipes everyone out. No. I'm kind of chill with the CERN reactor creating a black hole.
Well, I think the CERN scientists, right? They're like, who's going to blame us?
Yeah.
Whereas with the disease, there's time for people.
Yeah. And there's that dread and the horror of it. Whereas the CERN reactor is like, Earth is there, and then CERN reactor turns on, and Earth is no longer there.
Also, I don't know if it was ever a real possibility.
It wasn't.
Because it's one...
No. The only thing that's ever been like that, where we were was the first nuke. And even then we were really, really, really certain.
And there was a war, so they didn't really care. What's interesting is...
the first nuke's like, it might light the atmosphere on fire.
I don't remember exactly how this works, but the minimum event horizon for a self-sustaining black hole is slightly larger than the diameter of the Earth.
Yes.
I don't know why. I don't know if that's if the black hole has to be the same mass as the Earth, or if Earth just happens to be close to the size of the smallest black hole. But...
Well, their event horizon, black holes are all the same size.
Yeah, but the event horizon.
Yeah.
Same mass then.
Yeah.
Yes, mass. They have different masses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need a black hole with a mass such that its event horizon is slightly larger than Earth.
Yeah.
So even if the CERN reactor created a black hole, it would, like, sucks to be in France or Switzerland or wherever it is, but...
Well, so the CERN reactor black hole, though, see, you say it sucks to be there. However, self-sustaining...
Oh, I guess it could destroy the whole Earth and then die.
Yes. Once it's eaten all its mass, it dies. If you have a black hole, right, and it's not of the right size, but you just keep, like, throwing... teratons of mass at it, it will eventually self-sustain itself.
Yeah. So...
Like the moon would go, uh-oh, and get smashed in it.
So they could turn off the mega train and stick a tube into space so that when the black hole forms, it can't suck anything in because it's all just a vacuum.
Yeah.
And then we're safe.
Yeah.
And then the CERN people are like, wait a minute, why don't we just use these megatrains and crash them together? And it's like, and then just like Ecuador is just wiped off the map in this massive explosion. Just... Then we learned that magnets do cool stuff at high speed.
See, the other thing about CERN reactor where they're fairly certain it was safe is we'd already been doing particle collision.
With like nukes?
Not with nukes, just our dad worked in a particle colliding lab before CERN was up and running. Yeah, no, they just launched them really fast at each other.
Yeah, CERN was just faster?
CERN was just bigger. And it took a lot of power. And CERN did it with cool particles. Before they were doing it with lame little ones. No, CERN did it with really big particles and smashed them. And then they found, what was it, gluons or?
Higgs boson or
yeah,
something?
the Higgs boson, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was just like the scale and stuff.
Yeah. But, yeah, just...
Don't be a creep.
Yeah, just stop begging to be enslaved and by children. It's weird. It's like everyone wants to be a child that's enslaved by children. Just this
disturbing
incest. Yeah, well, not everyone, obviously. And like I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast or not, but like when I was at New Year's with my friend, Thanksgiving with my friends, I was reminded that most people, at least that I know, are fairly normal.
Yeah.
It's like there's just CBC and the internet and universities. They're all crazy.
Yeah.
And
government.
A lot of the adults in our lives.
And politicians.
And people at the church. But like most normal people are fairly sane. Well,
yeah, so kind of want to end just very much shorten it down. I guess one thing that I want to talk about is so this guy was talking about Canada on the Lotus Eaters. And basically they're asking like why Lotus Eaters like vote Trudeau in and like why are they letting themselves like lose their freedoms?
Canadians.
Yeah, Canadians. And he was saying like Canada doesn't really have a culture or whatever, and we're sort of like we look to Great Britain or we look to the United States to see what they're doing. And I slightly disagree with him on that. Canadians are a bit like hobbits, and I'm actually serious about this. So
we actually respect our government.
Yeah,
like because our government actually, when given power, has proven to use it responsibly for the most part. Yeah,
but so like in the Scour of the Shire, basically like what allowed it is everyone just kept going along with it until the four hobbits came back and shook things up, and then the hobbits got really mad and they wanted to kill all the big folk that were in the Shire, but the four hobbits that show up said no, we just have to run them out, we're not going to kill them. And that's actually a bit like Canadians. Like Canadians, they want to spend time with their family. They want to go play that game, they want to like go have a nice dinner, they want to go hunting, they just want to live their life. And
they don't care about politics and everything.
And so Trudeau has let us live our lives, we're going to let him live our lives, and we're not going to pay attention. But eventually
we realize that we're enslaved.
Well, we realize that things get bad, and then Canadians will get very, very grumpy if it keeps going on.
Well, the thing is,
because we have the legacy of France and Canada, we actually do. And also the same with war. Like we have examples in war is when Canada was riled into doing something in basically every single war conflict we've been in. Like even when it's Canadian volunteers, like those people are riled enough to volunteer to go fight in a conflict that Canada's not involved in. Canadians are, I think, the best put, very grumpy soldiers. Like they're not grumpy all the time, but they're like there to get the job done. And that's kind of like Canada's like, oh, you've lit the house on fire, fine, I'm going to go get the extinguisher, I'm very upset about it.
Well, it's kind of a shame that...
But we're not going to be constantly looking out for the fires. Like once the whole house starts burning down, then we're like, who's there?
You don't really respect the hobbits in a way, because like they are like big children in a way. Like they're kind of useless to it. Like when push comes to shove, they'll get the job done, but they're
just living their lives until then.
Like there's this the price for freedom is constant vigilance, and Canadians are not constantly vigilant. They'd rather just, it sounds, fight every time instead of just paying attention. Like
but I think we have a few Frodos and Samwises and tuk-tuks and peregrines. Like, a few of those do exist in Canada as well. I think we have them, and I think they just need to get big enough to wake Canadians up to a point.
Everyone I've talked to about vaccine passports has basically said the same thing. Like, oh yeah, that could be bad. I'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
But it's really easy to do. Just go online and you get one. So they're saying, yeah, we'll let it happen. And oh yeah, this could ruin our rights, but it's not ruining our rights right now, so it's fine. Mm-hmm. But it's like, hey, there's a tiger in the house. It's like, yeah, it could kill someone, and if it kills someone, we'll get rid of it. Could we just get rid of it? Like, I'm not impressed by that attitude personally.
Yeah, I think that is partly what Canada isn't, though.
But at least we probably won't become like Soviet Russia.
Yeah. No, even
hopefully.
I feel like Canadians would get upset before we got to what Australia is at.
I hope so. But
I mean, I would.
Canadians just don't like making a fuss.
Just make it about hockey. And then we'll destroy cities.
Yeah, but that's because they're petulant children. It doesn't really improve the situation.
No, we just have to convince Canadians that the vaccine passport will affect hockey.
The one thing I love about the Australian lockdown is watching the Australian working men revolt, because Australians are some of the toughest people on earth.
Yeah.
And it's really funny to watch, like you see in Spain, the police just destroyed the revolters. In the United States, the police just stand aside and let it happen. In France, they sent in the military, and and even then the French people are just kind of like, probably secretly working behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But in Australia, the people just are willing to like go toe to toe, like rugby style, with the police and win. And it's kind of beautiful.
Do you know what happened in the Canadian hockey riots in Vancouver with the police?
Police joined in?
Yes! The reason why our riots weren't shut down is the police joined the rioters.
I think...
Like, even in that big conflict where the group of that First Nations group took control of the area, like slightly terroristic, and it was like a riot, a large amount of the police force joined their side there. It's...
Yeah, I don't know enough. Like, I'd have to think about it, I guess, about Canadians, because you're saying that Canadians, like, when push comes to shove, they'll act, but Canada hasn't, like, when it comes to foreign wars, we seem to really step up to the plate. But when it comes to subversion within our own government, we seem to have failed every step of the way so far.
The other thing I wanted to talk about is I'm really grumpy that the Canadian people are being associated with the government. And I think we've talked about it a bit before, but like the whole Stopping Canada Day because of the discovery of what the Canadian government did. And just...
Well, here's the thing. Like, a normal Canadian citizen doesn't know about that.
Yeah.
Like, most Canadians probably just went to Canada Day anyways.
Yeah, but, like... Or, like, the rest... Like, when people are, like...
We have all these Aboriginal holidays, and people are just like, oh, I got a day off.
Yeah. But also people are like, like, I heard one person, like, Canadians are just pretending to be nice. And it's like, you are such a cynical bastard. Like, no, Canadians...
Canadians are, like... the least politically aware people on earth.
Yeah.
Like, but we don't know our own national anthem. We're not anti-patriotic, but we just don't know it. We don't pay attention.
We're like hobbits. We're literally Canadians want to live their lives.
Yeah.
But also, like, the Canadian citizenship, like, people say it's China, like, I don't like the Chinese government, but Chinese people are fine. Like, people are like, oh, Canada over here, like, trying to hide, they did all these things. Like, no, it's the Canadian government. The Canadian people were just living their lives.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone knows, because no government is the people.
But I hate, like, I've heard and I've seen it, like, people are like, oh, the Canadians are...
Well, it's funny, actually. I think you probably know this, but a lot of Canadians don't. Canada's a bit of a joke internationally. Like, especially Scandinavian countries really look down on Canada, because they see us as fairly authoritarian, actually, and just like really progressive and silly and authoritarian. And our family of a family person, I'll tell you who they are after, but they're leaving Canada, and they're leaving Canada because they just can't take it anymore. They say, like, we're becoming too authoritarian, we're too ridiculous. And our mom and a bunch of other family members were laughing about this, like, oh, they're leaving. What do they think? Other places in the world are different? Like, and I was like, wow, you really have no idea how the rest of the world sees Canada. Like, the rest of the world does not look fondly on Canada, and we are far more authoritarian than most places.
Yeah.
Like, in Europe, and especially Scandinavia, and, like, Japan, and, like, Japan is super anti-authoritarian for some reason. Like, I don't know how that combines with their emperor worship, but, like...
He's the emperor.
And, like, Eastern Europe, very anti-authoritarian.
I think we need to have the queen be more like the Japanese emperor for...
I don't know. I've seen some theories about her which are interesting. And that she might be the one whose fault everything is.
Is this treason? Is this treason I hear before mine ears?
Sorry, I think it's her fault that everything's turned out so great. And oppress me harder, mummy.
Is this...
Mom?
That sounds like more treason to me!
I need to stop. My voice is going. But,
It's the treason bleeding from your tongue and choking you.
Yeah, I really don't know how Canadians will... Well, we seem to just... We're like frogs in the boiling water, aren't we? We just sit there forever. I don't know. But I'm not actually that concerned, all in all, because I think at the end of the day, you don't ask for a top-down change. You just make your little corner of the world a bit ahead, a slice of heaven. And don't worry about, oh no, the Canadian government's doing this. Just do your own thing. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to get a vaccine passport. Simple as that. I just do my own life, live as I see as just and right, and that's that. And... if that makes my little corner of the world a better place, then that's all I need. I think in China, a lot of people live like that. They just, like, China seems very restricted from the outside, but most people just live their lives, and they have good lives, and they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And it's just, the government is trying really hard to oppress people, but people, you can't really oppress people. Like, they're free in their thoughts, right?
I am going to be the fascist leader of Italy. I am taking control of the government. Okay.
Yeah, we vote you in.
No, let me take over. I want to take over.
Now you seem like a cool dude. I don't want to be bad. Yeah, and like, obviously once they can start restricting what you think. But the thing is, the people at the top are human too. So even if they're restricting what you think, someday they're gonna have a bit of, like, read some Heinlein. Like, I've been reading I Fear No Evil, and it's this horrible future he predicts for America, like this weird fascist crime-ridden blasted landscape, and yet everyone's just living their lives because that's what people do, right? And it's like, it's like, oh, the government records everything you do, just you have to learn different ways to speak about things. You have to learn how to think in, like, 1984 is really bleak, but the amount of control that require, like, I don't have confidence in any human being capable of running that system. Now if aliens started, like, running it, maybe, but yeah, I need to stop. So, just it's good. Good. I'm just make your life your own little slice of heaven. Follow your dreams, but don't follow the meaning of your dreams, not the dream itself. I think is my takeaway. From your name, I don't know why I turned into like a Aesop's like guy. I'm summarizing for myself more than anyone. I think
you should do what Callum does.
What's that?
It's actually really
raise his eyebrow.
Thank you and goodbye.
That's
how he ends them.
But
he just does it. It's like, wow, he can just.
Yeah, but am I thankful? And do I want God to be with them? Yes. Yes, God can be with them. I'm not thankful, but God maybe go.
Get off your fence, you namsy pansy.
I'm not on a fence. I'm on a
hedge.
No, I'm like a dervish atop a pole. Just in perfect harmony with the universe. So God be with you.